Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this afternoon session. We're going to be sort of taking you through Sage Intacct, but primarily a focus on software companies. So whether you're SaaS or not, we're going to do sort of an overview of Sage Intacct, but then there is some specific functionality that we'd like to take you through. That is something that we find a lot of these types of organizations will benefit from, and what you sort of get out of the box when you move to Sage Intacct. So without further ado, I'm going to run through a very short presentation. The idea is just to set us up and to set my colleague Matthew up. Really just an introduction as to who we are, what gives us the rights to talk about Sage Intacct, and primarily our experience within this sector. Very high level overview of Sage Intacct, and I will then pass you across to my colleague, which leads me nicely onto introduction. So my name's Roy, I'm a sales consultant with Division 33. My role primarily really is to speak with new prospective clients, understand the challenges they face with their current systems and how that has an impact, not only on themselves individually, but their team, the finance team, but also the business as a whole, and particularly how that sort of impacts, the business growth plan over the next couple of years. And then I work with them through the process to ensure that we firstly make sure Intacct is a good fit and that they have what they need when I hand you guys over to our delivery team, which Matthew is a part of. So Matthew is one of our Intacct consultants for Sage Intacct and knows Intacct inside and out. So you're in very good hands with him today. In terms of who we are, so we are Vision 33. We are actually the largest Intacct partner that there is. So we are headquartered in St. John's in Canada, but we do have UK and US entities as well. What makes us special is that we do have a central delivery team that sits across these three countries, but with localized consultants as well. So there's a huge talent pool of individuals that would work with you on your implementations, and very useful if you are a multinational organization, particularly internationally, if you have offices in either the US or Canada. So there's a lot of experience there. But we are very much a finance transformation partner. So it's much more than a implementation and support journey. We very much see a long-term partnership with our prospective clients, and we really want to ensure that you get the most out of Sage Intacct and your investment into a product. We're not a small partner by any means. We've got very strong financials. We're profitable year on year. I'm not trying to brag. It's just important for you to know, because the last thing that you need is to go through an implementation and for your partner to disappear 12 months after because they weren't financially secure. So there is no risk of that happening with us. We are very secure in that sense. And we do work with a broad range of organizations, but in particular, the SaaS and software vertical is one that we are very familiar with. So we do have a number of organizations who work with us, who use Sage Intacct for their day-to-day finance operations and leverage the capabilities that Intacct provides for those types of organizations. So Widget and Mutual Vision are just a handful. But why I think it's important to bring some of the other sort of organizations is that, a lot of the companies that we work with in the SaaS space also need things like, project accounting, revenue management, that sort of thing. And we do find this is also a requirement in some of the other sectors that we work in, professional services, consultancy, for example. And all of that experience from those sectors is actually pulled into implementations for our SaaS companies as well. So you guys are really benefiting from that cross knowledge that our consultants, Matthew and his team have when we come to implement Sage Intacct for you. And in terms of Sage Intacct, so just to start with, it is what we refer to as a best of breed finance system. It's not a ERP. Big differences there. And, perhaps that's something we can run into in another webinar. But what you need to take away from this is that Sage Intacct is a modular system. What I mean by that is that you only pay what you need from day one. And of course, should your requirements change over time, working with your account manager and identifying those capabilities that you need, it's more than likely that Intacct has a module that we can provide. What also sets Intacct aside from others is that it is a cloud native solution. It was born and bred in the cloud. It's not one of these finance systems that's been around for like 30 odd years, always used to be on premise and recently made the move to cloud, which actually comes with its own set of challenges. Intacct, as long as you have a web browser and an internet-enabled device, you can access Intacct, any place, anytime. It's also a dimensional accounting solution. Matthew's going to sort of walk through what that actually means, but really Dimensions is what is the backbone of Sage Intacct and really provides you with sophisticated reporting, allowing for real-time decision making. But the idea with Intacct is that it has been built by finance professionals for professional finance teams. And the idea is that you can hit the ground running with the solution relatively quickly. Although everybody gets the same in terms of core financials, there's a heap of additional modules that you can effectively tag on as and when they're required. Of course, for the purpose of today's live demo, we're going to be focusing on some modules that are very relevant to the SaaS and software space, particularly things around contract management and SaaS metrics from a reporting perspective. And we'll also be touching on multi-entity, because a lot of the SaaS companies that we work with or are speaking to at the moment do tend to be multi-entity domestically or internationally. And without taking anything away from Matthew, I just wanted to give you a bit of a snippet of sort of what you're in for. But this is sort of an example of these sort of pre-built dashboards that you receive as part of the SaaS pack that you get as a SaaS company. So really giving you everything that you need as a SaaS organization in terms of your numbers. So, your total ARR, customer churn, and, things like that, which again, I don't want to steal Matthew's thunder. So I'm going to let him sort of, take you guys through that. But the key thing also to take away is that Intacct is very much a sort of verticalized solution. So in the sense that there are templates, if you will, that when we come to provision you, we will do so based on the type of organization that you are. And what that means is things like terminology reports will be more geared towards the type of organization that we're setting up as. So in this sense, there is a software and SaaS sort of template. It's also relevant to modules. There's a ton of modules within the Sage Intacct price list that are only really relevant to particular types of sectors. And the SaaS is no different. So, the SaaS intelligence reporting is one there where it is a pre-built sort of dashboard of those types of metrics for software companies and SaaS organizations. And really, I don't want you thinking that Intacct by any means is geared towards multi-entity. It is also very much focused on single entity organizations as well. So if that's where you are at the moment, and perhaps you have plans to grow in the next couple of years as a multinational company or international company, Intacct will have you covered. The idea is scalability at the end of the day. So we really feel that Intacct is a system that is going to be with you for the next 5 to 10, 15 years. It really should be the last finance system that you need to bring in. So it's very much tailored to the requirements, of course, of the UK, but also powered by global capabilities as well. And what I mean by that is multi-book accounting, sophisticated global consolidation and reporting as well. So there's a lot that you can do with Sage Intacct. We've had organizations come on board with us who've started their life as a single entity and have grown using Sage Intacct. And we've also had large multinational and international organizations, again, who've come on to Sage Intacct as a SaaS company and have continued to sort of grow with us too. And really lastly is, we get one of the common requirements that we do have speaking with SaaS companies is integration, particularly with CRM. So the two most popular are Salesforce or HubSpot in this space. Now, Sage Intacct does have a pre-built integration with Salesforce as part of its price list, which for the most part actually might do. But where you might have more custom integration requirements, we already have a custom connector, already with Salesforce to Sage Intacct via our Saltbox platform. So Saltbox is our own in-house built integration platform. And essentially we can plug it in between Sage Intacct and any other systems that you have within your business ecosystem. And really what we achieve is that we remove you guys away from having sort of data silos where, you've got different systems that are not necessarily speaking with each other, and you're having to sort of, export data into Excel sheets, and there's time spent reconciling it or mapping it into a particular format where you can then feed it back into your finance system. We do all away with that with Saltbox. So, if you have very niche or bespoke integration requirements, perhaps you have a billing system, for example, that you want to continue to use, you're more than welcome to look at an integration with that to Intacct through Saltbox, if such an integration doesn't exist already. So that is enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Matthew now, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rory. Hi, everybody. As Rory mentioned, my name is Matthew. I'm going to walk us through our Intacct demo today with a focus primarily on the contracts module, which is best suited for revenue type contracts, whether those are termed subscription contracts or evergreen type contracts, any type of revenue contract, really. Intacct's contracts module is going to help make your organization much more efficient. Before we jump into the contracts module, just a couple of other high-level notes. as Rory mentioned, we have a very wide-ranging team here with consultants in all across Canada and in the United Kingdom, and we have a ton of experience. But something else that's important to note is all of us, more or less, are not only well versed with Sage Intacct, but we all have accounting backgrounds. So not only do we know the solution that we're going to implement for you, but we also all have accounting backgrounds, which of course brings a big benefit when we're implementing in a financial accounting type solution. So just before we get into contracts, I want to talk a little bit about dimensions and what dimensions will do for your system. So Intacct does a lot of things really, really well, from your core accounting modules like accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, general ledger, the basic modules that every financial accounting system must have, into more advanced modules such as the contracts and SaaS module, which we're about to see today. But other examples would be like a fixed asset management solution, revenue recognition, which kind of goes hand in hand in what we're going to see today as well. Like you wouldn't be able to run contracts without having revenue recognition, prepaid expense amortization, inventory control, procurement processes with approvals in-house, just a wide array of modules that you can implement within Intacct. And again, it is a native cloud environment, so no more on-prem servers, no server maintenance, no server security. All those costs go out the window. And as Rory mentioned, you can access it anywhere, anytime. And the updates to the solution are really important to remember. They will happen automatically for you 4 times per year. So you don't have to do anything. The releases come on a particular date throughout the year, and they come into the solution, and you don't have to confirm them. You don't have to wait for them to install. They will happen off hours, generally over a weekend. Like the release date will be a Friday, but it really doesn't find its way into the system until Saturday and Sunday. So when you log in on Monday, you can expect the most recent release to be in your system. So back to dimensions for a moment. Where Intacct really shines and kind of outpaces competition, in my opinion, would come with its financial reporting. Not just the reports that it can build, but how easy it is to build those reports, how easy it is to isolate data that would help drive decision making in your organization. So out of the box, every client gets access to the class dimension, the department dimension, the employee dimension, the location and entity dimension. Customer and vendor are also a dimension, and you will get access to the item dimension. Now, the item dimension is available whether or not you have inventory. As you see, there's no inventory module in the system that I'm demoing with today, but I can go into either my purchasing module or my order entry module, and I can set up items. And these items will be set up as non-inventory. And these will be really important, especially with the contracts module, because you're probably selling things such as annual subscriptions, user licenses, professional services, and you want to keep track of how much of those items you are selling, and you want to keep track of your SaaS metrics on those items and your customers. Now, what the dimensions do for you is they allow you to remove sub-accounts from your core GL listing, maintain what those sub-accounts would have previously been in a standalone list here. I'm going to turn off this enhanced list for a moment, and allow you to track your financials across all of these dimensional values with ease. So if in a system that did have sub-accounts and not this dimensional accounting, you can see in my system here, I have 9 departments that I want to be able to track financial data across. So in a system with sub-accounts and not dimensions, for every GL account that you want to be able to track the activity across each department or contract or item or customer or vendor or location or any dimension in the system, you would need whatever number of GL accounts you have multiplied by the list of dimensions that you have, right? So if you had 10 GL accounts that you wanted to track the financial activity across these departments, and 10 is very, very conservative, that's a super low number if you're doing this, you would end up with 90 GL accounts. So right there, that's 90 GL accounts. The majority of the clients that we have in Intacct would have no more than 200 GL accounts. But if this were taking up 90 already in your old system, obviously you're going to surpass that amount that we can have in Intacct very, very quickly. A large chart of accounts results in more keying errors, more difficulty managing your financial reporting, more difficulty running reports on those departments, you have to select particular GLs. So the way they kind of work is when you're doing any entry in the system, if you're coding a journal entry, an AP transaction, anything that hits your books. I don't know who set up this entries layout, but I certainly would love my GL account to be the first thing that I pick. So I'll just move it over quickly. We'll show a little flexibility in the system as well. You choose your GL account. Let's maybe go with something like rent. Do we have a rent expense? We do. So maybe you have a rent expense that you want to track, you want to allocate out across multiple departments. You simply list the same GL account here multiple times, and then in your department dropdown, you simply choose the department that each amount is relevant to. So over here, we would put in, maybe it's 250 for the sales department, maybe it's 500 for the support department, and maybe it's 750 for sales and marketing. So what this would allow you to do is, if I were to go run a general ledger detail report or a P&L, I could choose to just see my full rent expense and I would see the full 1500. If I wanted to isolate that report when I run it and only see the amounts tagged to my sales department or my support department, I could do that. I could filter my report and only see the 250 or the 500. And not only a financial report like a P&L, even your general ledger detail report. And then if I also wanted to run it to see the full 1500, but see the breakout in different columns. So see my rent expense, but see on that report how much is allocated to each department, I would be able to do that as well. So you get all the same flexibility plus more that you would get if these were individual GL accounts. It just makes things a whole lot easier for you. So just a quick note on dimensions, and you can do that with any dimension in the system. And one of those dimensions, if you are a SaaS type company, will be your contract. So that is very, very important. At any point in time in the system, you will be able to track things such as revenue per contract, deferred revenue per contract, accounts receivable owing per contract. Anything you want to run and isolate for a contract or a group of contracts, you would be able to do that. So with that little piece about dimensions out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the contracts module and the SaaS module. So the core of getting your SaaS metrics and having Intacct function best to give you those SaaS metrics and everything you're looking for, the core of that comes from the contracts module. Now, in the contracts module, we can do a lot of things. Of course, we can set up our subscriptions, our subscription contracts with any lines we need on them, but we can also do things such as manage our renewals, so we can have automatic renewals. We can choose how we're going to recognize our revenue. We can set up billing templates. So if you're not on a standard billing cycle, most clients generally they either bill like once per year, or maybe they're going to bill once per month and send out an invoice once per month. That's super easy to do. But then if you're a little more complicated with your billing cycle, maybe you have a line that you want to bill a certain percentage 3 months out, and then you want to bill another percentage another 2 months out, and then you want to bill the remaining percentage out 4 months after that, you would set up a billing template to do that. So we can manage renewals, we can manage expense recognition, such as like commission expenses on a contract, so we can recognize those over the life of the contract. We can manage your revenue recognition. We can set up compliance tasks for each contract, and we can really help automate your billing for your contracts. So let's start from scratch and look at how all of that would happen. So when we come in to set up a new contract, we would give the contract an ID. We can have this automatically provide a contract ID, but some clients do prefer to put in their own ID. I'm just going to put in demo for mine. I'm going to go ahead and choose a customer. We'll just go ahead and choose Acme Inc. The contract name, we'll just go ahead and call it Looney Tunes and see if anybody will get that little reference with Acme. We can organize our contracts into different types. There are none available in this drop down right here, but if we wanted to add more types and say this is contract type A, you can determine the available options that are in this drop-down list very, very quickly. And this is really used for running financial reports for a group of contracts at the same time. So if I had a pile of contracts classified as type A, I could run a P&L and say, show me all of my net income for all of my contracts that are categorized as type A, or all my SaaS metrics for contracts that are categorized as type A. You can then go ahead and give your contract a description if you want to. Again, I will just put demo contract in here as my description. We scroll down below, and this is where things start to get really important. We put in a start date for our contract. We'll go ahead and say that we're going to do 11/01/2025. Please pardon my date format, not matching the UK date format. I am in Canada, so this is my date format, but this is November 1. I'm going to go ahead and run this contract. I'm going to say it's a 3-year contract. I'm going to run it out until October 31st of 2028. After that, we can choose a payment term that will automatically display on the invoices when we generate them for this contract. So, in my system, I have due on receipt at 10, 30, 45, and 60, but you can put any payment terms in here that you require. You can have price lists so that prices automatically generate for you. If you're dealing with year-over-year price changes, this would be really important to put to use. Maintaining a price list will mean much less maintenance on your contracts as a whole. I'm going to go ahead and put it there just as an example. We can bill in advance. So if the contract starts on November, but you want to bill on October 1, you can say, I'm going to bill 31 days in advance, but it might just be easier to go 1 month here instead of days. This little note fooled me for a moment up top. I didn't think I was going to be able to choose months. If we scroll down, then we'll just choose a location. So we'll choose our UK operating company. We can then assign out any dimensions that we want the revenue and expenses for this contract to be tagged to. Maybe this goes directly to sales. Maybe it's a support type contract, so we want to go to support. Maybe it's a professional services type contract. We would just choose the relevant department here. We don't have anything in class, and we're not going to talk about projects today. I do have to choose a transaction currency because Intacct is a multi-currency environment, and the one that I'm in has multi-currency turned on. If you only operate in a single currency, this option would not be here for you. You wouldn't have to make this choice. It would default to your currency. And then we'll go ahead and put on an exchange rate. And if we want to manage renewals, if this is going to be a contract that we want to automatically renew, we can click this checkbox, and then we will have renewal templates. So we have 3 renewal templates here, one that's called discount, one that's called increase, and one that's called same. So what I'll do is I'll click on the increase one, and I'll just bring up the renewal template to show you what this can do. So this tells us in our description that this will renew at a 10% increase. It is going to create a new contract for us automatically when the old contract expires. It is going to have a default term of 12 months. So it's a 3-year contract that automatically renews for 1 year. And when it renews, there is going to be a markup on that contract of 10%. So the price will automatically increase by 10% when the automatic renewal occurs. And if we wanted to send an email to the customer or send an email to internal staff when a renewal occurs, we can turn on these checkboxes and set up what are called email templates to send emails out to either the customer or internal staff or both, if you like. So a little bit on renewal templates. Now, the renewal template that I had was a default term of 12 months. If I want to change that here, it's going to be a 10% increase, but it's actually going to be for 3 years. And I don't want to make a brand new renewal template. I can just override that right here. And then I would be able to post my contract. So this is setting up the header of your contract. I'm going to go ahead and take away my bill in advance here just for simplicity. And I'm going to click on post and continue. And what that is going to do is what it's giving me that little error because I took away my one on the bill in advance, and I should have this not selected, just a small little slip there. So now this is going to create the header for my contract. Once the header for my contract is in, this is where I would go enter now any lines on that contract. What are we billing the client for? So we would come down and we would click on add right here. That will pop open the contract line entry. And this is where we can enter our lines. So maybe we have a 3-year line. We'll say we're going to I'm trying to find some type of subscription here. Let's just go ahead and take MDR for cloud apps. And we're going to say this line is going to run from November 1, 2025 until October 31, 2028. It is going to be a renewing line. And then we come down and we enter in our price and how we want this to bill out. So we're going to go with it's a fixed price. We're going to use a billing template. We're going to change this to be an annual 3-year billing. I'm going to go ahead and put in a quantity of 1. My rate didn't populate there from my price list, most likely because of my date. I know the data in this environment the data in this environment is held back in 2020, but setting up contracts in the past can be complicated at times. So that's just why my rate didn't come through. I'll go ahead and just put in a rate of 25,000, and you'll see now that my base flat fixed amount comes in at 25,000. When we scroll down, we can choose our revenue recognition options. So we have three options here. We have a straight line, we have immediate, and we have a daily rate. So straight line is just going to recognize 1 month of revenue, month over month, from November 1, 2025 until October 31st, 2028. We could go with a daily rate. What I want to note about the daily rate is it doesn't post revenue every single day. It simply is, it calculates the amount of revenue per that month based off the amount of days in that month. So in November, I would get 30 days of revenue posted on November 30th. In December, I would get 31 days of revenue posted on December 31st. So it's not posted daily, it's just calculated using a daily rate. I will go ahead and keep mine on straight line, and I can go ahead and post this contract line. It's my renewal giving me a little bit of trouble there. I'm going to take away renew on this line just for simplicity. And we'll post our contract line. Now, as soon as I post my contract line, I will get access to things such as the billing schedule and my revenue recognition schedule. Every time I run this module, I do make sure that I take my revenue schedule and I put it up on the top here. And I will also put my billing schedule up here. It just makes it a lot easier for you to double check your work if we have those lines more easily accessible. You can always access them, but having them front and center is really important. And it looks, did it actually take away my contract line? No, okay. So we have our revenue schedule right here. So we can view our revenue schedule. That will show us that every single month, at the end of every month, starting on November 30th from 2025 up until October 31st of 2028, we are going to recognize $694.44 of revenue. So that's our revenue schedule. So a straight line over the 3 years. Now our billing schedule is going to differ. If we look at our billing schedule, it was a yearly billing year over year. So we have $8,333 on November 1 of 2025, the same amount on November 1, 2026, and the same amount on November 1, 2027. So that is one line on our contract. Now you can have many lines on this contract. That is most likely to happen. Maybe this is an implementation type contract and there are professional services that occur at the start of the contract. So we can add a second line in here. We can go ahead and I'm going to look to see if do I have any professional service type. I'm going to look for something that is suitable here. Let's just take this one. We'll take professional services. We'll say, this is really a one line contract. Now we expect the implementation process to take 2 months. So I'm going to make this contract line run from November 1 of 2025 up until December 31st of 2025. I'll then come down and come to my fixed price. This most likely is not going to be on a billing template. This is maybe a one-time billing. We're doing a fixed fee project. So at the start of the term, we're going to bill them out for $15,000 of professional services. The revenue recognition, maybe we're going to recognize that over the 2 months that we've put in for the contract line. Maybe we're going to recognize this immediately. Maybe it's just going to get recognized right away. At that point, these dates won't really matter, but we probably would make them the same just for clarity. And then I can go ahead and post this contract line. And now we will have, so now we have our professional services line. Again, so if we look at the revenue schedule, we've called it immediate. So it's going to be all the revenue is going to get recognized in November, the full 15,000. And if we look at the billing schedule, it should be the same thing. It's going to be a one-time billing for $15,000. Now, to show a little bit of more flexibility with this line, I'll act like we're going to go put in some user licenses. Now, maybe the way our user licenses work is we bill them every month based off the amount of users that they have. So I'll go ahead and put in a user licenses subscription. I will say that this is going to run it's going to go from the start of the contract until the end of the contract. This is going to be and include with every invoice type billing, where you're going to invoice them on a monthly frequency. We can change this to monthly, quarterly, or annually. Any other nuance of billing, like more spaced out months, we'll just use a billing template. And we will say right now they have bought 25 users. Those users cost $250 per license. And we will see that the base flat fixed amount per invoice is $6,250. But the duration, the amount of months that run between November 1st of 2025 and October 31st of 2028 is 36 months. So right now, this line will come in at a total of $225,000 over those 3 years. The rev rec would again likely be straight line recognition, and we will go ahead and be able to post that line. So we'll just wait for that line to post through. Okay, so it just took a few moments. And again, we can come out immediately and check our revenue schedule. It's going to recognize month over month as it should, and the same with our billing schedule. It's going to be a monthly billing for 3 years. So 36 rows separated on 2 pages here for $6,250 per month. So that is a core setup here of a contract. As I mentioned, if you have things such as, commission to your salespeople for making the sale of this contract, and they get commission, and maybe they receive the full commission immediately, but you need to recognize that commission over the term of the contract, we would add an expense line, just like we added our contract lines. I won't do it out of the thought of time, but it works exactly the same, except instead of recording revenue, we're going to record an expense. So almost like a prepaid expense recognition in the contract itself, and away we go. So before I move into any more functionality about contracts, because there are some things to talk about here, I'll go ahead and show you how we would bill for this specific contract. So now I can save this contract. If we just take a look at our billing schedules one more time, on November 1st, we should have $8,333.34 get billed. For our second line, we should have more billing on November 1st in the amount of $15,000. And on our third line, we should have another line for billing on November 1 of $6,250. So if my contract is saved, now with everything set up, I can go out and generate my invoices. This can happen for you automatically. You can set up automated runs to generate your contracts on a daily basis. But for the sake of a demo, we'll kind of just show you how it works. I'm going to say my invoice date is going to be 11/01 of 2025. We're going to post that invoice on the same day. We're going to set some filters to look for particular contracts to send out invoices for. And I'm actually going to go one step further, and I'm going to look for my particular contract. Now, you may not filter to this level when you do your billing. You may just come in and say, I want to bill for all of my contracts. You just simply would not choose this option down here to just look for a specific contract. But just to save time, I will filter, and I'll go ahead and click on preview. We'll go ahead and pull up my invoice for that client based off my parameters. It comes to a total of $29,583.34. If we open up and drill in just to review that invoice before we send it out, we can see the 3 lines that we looked at a moment ago that should be billed on November 1, and we would be able to go ahead and click save, and the system would generate our invoice in the system for us. So, being able to do that in bulk, tell the system to invoice as of a particular date, and kind of show you how flexible this is. Maybe I forgot to send November's billing, right? If I don't save that bill and I say, I want to invoice this out as of 12/31 of 2025, we'll pretend we're kind of in the future a little bit. The contract that I have isolated, it does have billing that is supposed to occur on December 1, most likely just for the licenses. I don't think my other line was monthly. So if we rerun this, you'll notice my amount has gone up by the 6,500 to the 35,833. If I go in and look at this again, you can see now that I've picked up my first month of user billing, and it's also picked up my second month of user billing because I have pushed out my as of date. So when am I trying to invoice as of? So really great stuff there to automate your billing, especially since you'd be doing it more or less in bulk. Now, when it comes to the pricing for certain items, and when it comes to other ways that you may bill out clients, we can handle things such as price lists, and we can handle usage billing. So when it comes to price list and price list entries, we can set up price list. You would add this entry to a particular price list. You pick a particular item. Maybe we say for our gold licenses. Maybe what we do is we give out a range. We have ranged pricing. So if a client purchases so many licenses, they start to get a discount. And that's what range right here would mean for me. range or tiered. So what I can say is, as of November 1, 2025, we're going to put in the flat amount as being 0. There's no base amount we're going to bill them. They don't get any units for free. The variable unit rate will be 250. And actually, this would actually need to be, the flat amount is 0. The included units is 0. That's 250. And let's go with tiered. We'll go with tiered. Yeah, tiered is where I was trying to go. Where we'll say the flat amount is 0, the included units are 0. And this is where we come down and we say the beginning quantity of 0, the tier rate that they're going to get billed is going to be 250. Once they get up to having 25 licenses, then they're going to get a discount and the amount per license is going to come down to 225. Once they get up to 75, they're only going to cost 200 per license. And if they get up to 150, then we're going to give them for 150 per license. So this is how you can get a bit of flexibility and a bit of control and just automation in the billing amounts if you have this type of situation. And we can also turn on usage billing. So if we go back to the contract I used a moment ago, where I set up the line that said they're going to have this many users per month, maybe we don't know how many users they're going to have per month. So maybe what we would end up doing is making our line here for our user licenses. We would turn this into a usage type contract, a usage type item, a usage type line. And at the end of every month, we would come in and put in how many active licenses they had throughout that month, and then let the system determine how much we should bill them month over month. So there's that option as well. Once you have a wide range of contracts in your system, how many ever contracts that may be, you're going to be looking for your SaaS metrics. So Intacct does have a module where we can have dashboards. This one right here is my ARR dashboard. If we come out to this dashboard, we can see metrics like our CARR, our CMRR, our subscription bookings, our average new deal CARR, our CAR growth rate, and more ratios that are certainly going to stand out to anybody interested in this demo. If we scroll down, we get a CAR growth breakdown report. So this is very useful to just have here on a dashboard, gives you your information very, very quickly. We have a customer growth breakdown. We have a CAR retention breakdown report. We then have a CAR waterfall graph, a total contract value trailing 12 months, a total CAR TTM, and more. I'll just scroll down and let you see all of this. So we'll just put them on the screen. That's just one example of a dashboard out of this system. There are also dashboards for things like your audit or your cash or your growth or product. So we'll just pop a couple of those up just to show the metrics that are available on them, just to give everybody an idea of what you can expect to see. So we have a CMRR available to renew report here. Looks like if we scroll down, we're going to get a CMRR and revenue recognition report. If we scroll down further, we've got a CMRR roll forward by customer. So you can see, we can see our CMRR per customer rolling forward month over month. My report is as of 01/01/2020, so it's trailing back to February 28th of 2019 and then showing me every month up to my as of date in my filter. And we'll scroll down and we've got CMRR by customer by month as well. So there's that report, that dashboard, and maybe let's take a look at our product dashboard. This dashboard is right now is filtered for as of today. I'm going to back this up to match my prior dashboards. It's just not set as the default. So I think we'll get some better information here. So total CMRR compared against the prior month, total CRR compared against the prior month, net dollar retention, gross dollar retention, and so on. Then more reports, subscription CMRR by product. So we're getting our CMRR by product here. So as you can probably see through my dashboards, you're going to get your SaaS metrics by customer, by product, month over month, available on a dashboard with automatic calculations. And the integration with Intacct really handles all of this for you. There's very little manual maintenance for you to do. So as an example, if you have a contract out there for a client and that contract expires and the contract does not renew, you can set it up so if that contract expires and that customer does not have any more contracts with you, the system will automatically mark that customer as churned, just as an example of some of the automation that you will get there. Some other things that we can handle with the contracts module. I did mention earlier in the demo about compliance tasks. So once a contract is set up, it is possible to put compliance tasks on each contract that you have. So we have a compliance tab over here right now. So we can see that there are tasks here for client name and billing address is verified. The contract start and end dates are verified. The billing frequency has been verified and the items, quantities, and prices have been verified. It would become part of your internal control that before we send out billing or verify this contract, somebody would come in here and sign off on these tasks. So I can come in and say that I signed off on these tasks. You would have to have people set up to say completed by. You put in a date and you sign off and you can leave a comment. So of course, only certain people would have access to this compliance task list. So just something that you can do. Now, when a contract is set up and in flight, the contract header is going to contain a lot of information for you. So this contract we can see ended on February 28th, 2021. So everything should be recognized, everything should be billed. And if we go up to the header, we can see that the contract total was for 100,242.18. The total that we have billed is 100,242.18, and the amount that we have received from the client is 1,242.18. So no outstanding receivables for this client or contract, no missed bills, and everything looks good. We can look at our renewal tab. This contract was not set up to automatically renew. If it was, we would be able to see information regarding the renewal here. We can look at things like our journal balances to see how much of this contract is in our deferred revenue, our sales revenue, our receivables, whether it's unbilled, billed, or paid. The same thing with our deferred revenue. Again, this contract is complete, so we shouldn't have any deferred revenue. We do not. Our sales revenue should all be paid and recognized, and it is. If we go to our transaction history, that will show us things like when we invoiced this client, when the revenue was recognized, just everything that happened with the information related to this contract. So a really strong audit trail here. And then there is a contract summary tab, which in this case is really basic because it was just a single invoice for this contract, but we can see the invoice that went out. We can drill right back to it. So from a contract header, you can always drill back to all the invoices that you have sent out for each particular contract. Let me see if I can find a contract that's kind of in flight. They're all going to be completed. They're all billed, except for my contract. So let's take a look at the contract I set up a moment ago just to see the difference. So the contract total is 265,000. We haven't billed any, so we wouldn't be able to receive any. If we go to the renewals, we can see that this contract is set up to automatically renew. When is it going to renew? On November 1st of 2018. If we go to the journal balances, we will see that all of my revenue is still deferred. November 30th has not occurred yet, so none of this has been recognized. So it's all deferred and it's all unbilled because we have not billed that out. And kind of the same summary. Now, what we can do just to highlight how quickly this screen updates and the information it can give you is earlier I didn't generate the invoice for this particular contract. Well, let's go ahead and generate an invoice just so we can see how that screen will update for you. So we go ahead and preview that, and we'll go ahead and we'll generate that invoice. Okay. So now the invoice is run. We can see that it succeeded. What that does is it does actually create the invoice for us. So now we would be able to come out and come to our order entry screen and come to our contract invoices. Near the top of the list here, we should see an invoice for this client, this contract, as we do. So if we view this screen, we'll see the invoice itself, how it looks in Intacct. Now, if we navigate back to that contract, we will see those tables that we looked at a few moments ago be fully updated. So if I come in now to my contract header, you can see already that my contract total is 265 as it was, but my billed amount has gone up to the amount that we've billed out. This amount is outstanding. We just issued the invoice. Unless the client prepaid us, this is still outstanding. If we come to my journal balances, you'll be able to see that all of my revenue, again, it is still all deferred because November 30th has not occurred yet, but we have billed out part of that revenue that is deferred. The rest of it is yet to be billed. That's what these columns really mean. And then, if the client were to pay this billed amount would move over to paid. It can't be paid without it being billed. So that's kind of how this screen works. If we go to our contract history, we will be able to see that we created the contract invoice over here. And these are the journal entries that occurred to do that. So it takes it out of like our unbilled receivables and deferred revenue and puts it into billed deferred revenue and receivables. And if we go to the contract summary, we see that invoice that we created. So if I were to create another invoice, it would populate here. There is some nice convenience built in. If you get a payment for a client from a client for a contract invoice, you can come to this screen and click on pay directly from here to record the payment from the client for this particular invoice itself. Yeah, and that more or less does it for our demo of the contracts module and the SaaS metrics that you can just have directly in your system that are automated with the module available in here. So through and through a really strong module that is going to help bring a lot of automation and a lot of efficiency for you when running your contracts, whether it's from generating your SaaS metrics to managing your renewals to automating your billing cycles, handling any complicated pricing structures because of tiered pricing or range pricing, or units that are included as free. Just a vast amount of functionality available in this module. It is fully compliant with all revenue recognition standards. ASC 606 is the term that Intacct likes to throw around. It is fully compliant with those revenue recognition standards. So with that, I will thank everybody for your time and coming out to our SaaS demo, and hope to hear from you in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matthew. I hope that was useful for everybody and it gives you an idea of what Intacct can do for you. We're now really at the hour, and so I just want to thank you all for your time this afternoon. We are going to be, of course, getting in touch with you all, and we'll be looking to arrange further calls, should this be something that you want to discuss with us in more detail. But until then, have a great afternoon, everybody, and I'll chat to you soon. Take care.